Imam Hussein Charity aims to help provide a better future for these impoverished patients, aiding them with finances for their prescriptions as well as dialysis of their kidneys. You can help our brothers and sisters with purchases of prescriptions for just £20, and for £200 help a patient with a dialysis procedure. To donate or for more information, visit www.imamhusseincharity.com.
Even death was not able to separate Abbas from Hussein, just as the haram of Abbas cannot be separated from the haram of Hussein, in the same way that Safa can never be separated from the mountain of Marwa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the mountain of Safa and Marwa to be from the Sha'air Allah. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the haram of Abbas and the haram of Hussein to be Sha'air Allah al-Kubra. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed that between the haram of Abbas and the haram of Hussein, there is a land of Mawaddah, there is a land of Azar, there is a land of Ishq, there is a land of Junoon. This is the land of Bayn al-Haramain. So long as this haram of Abbas and the haram of Hussein remains, people until the day of judgment will beat their faces and chests shouting, Ya Abbas and Ya Hussein. The divine decree of Allah is that from the land of Bayn al-Haramain, every time a tear is shed for Hussein, a tear is shed for Abbas. It is the divine decree that from Bayn al-Haramain, so long as there is a chant Ya Hussein, it will be accompanied with a chant Ya Abbas. The decree of Allah is that Abbas can never be separated from Hussein.
Inherit. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another live show of Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic laws, rights, wrongs and corrects. The show that answers many questions that you guys send in. Inshallah, the show is live, and we're expecting many questions coming in via YouTube, via WhatsApp, as well as getting the opportunity to speak to the Sheikh directly by the number provided at the bottom of the screen and getting a direct answer from the Sheikh. I'm your host, Abu Talib Muhammad, and I'm joined by Sheikh Ali Maash. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
How are you, Sheikh? You well, inshallah?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We shall start with the questions that have come in, and inshallah we'll be chasing up the questions and catching up with the questions that we didn't have enough time to read last week. We shall start off with the first one, and it says, do the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam inherit each other? And if so, what did they inherit?
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين.
Ameen.
The prophets and their vicegerents and the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they would inherit two types of inheritance. Number one is the tangible inheritance, and that is, for example, Asa Musa alayhi salam or Khatam Sulaiman.
No.
وورث Sulaiman Dawood. Each prophet inherits, what the prophet had, for example. As an example, Qamis Yusuf, or the shirt of Yusuf, in which he sent it with his brothers to place that shirt on the face of their father. فَارْتَدَّ بَصِيرًا.
No.
That was actually the shirt of Adam alayhi salam when he used to wear it in paradise, when he was in Jannah. So that shirt was inherited from Adam to Ibrahim alayhi salam, all the way to other prophets, until it reached Yusuf alayhi salam, in which he sent it to his father when he was in Egypt, in which his father was able to see when this miracle happened, in which they placed that shirt, which is a heavenly shirt, on the eyes of Yaqub alayhi salam. So the prophets initially they inherit tangible things and also non-tangible, such as ilm and other features. So in this hadith in Kitab al-Kafi, as we read by Muhammad ibn Muslim, a great companion and the narrator of the hadith, عن أبي عبد الله الصادق عليه السلام, he says, قال إن عليا عليه السلام كان عالما. Imam Ali alayhi salam was a scholar, was an alim. Of course, the ilm here means علوم أهل البيت عليه السلام. They've inherited علوم الأنبياء عليهم السلام. So it's beyond the knowledge that we seek and gain. والعلم يتوارث, and the ilm of the Anbiya and the A'immah عليهم السلام يتوارث, would be inherited. So Ahlul Bayt would inherit this ilm from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Initially, because Imam Ali said Salaamullah alayhi, that علمني Rasulullah ألف باب من العلم, that the Holy Prophet taught me 1,000 doors and gates of knowledge. ولن يهلك عالم إلا بقي من بعده من يعلم علمه. And none of those ulama or the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam would pass away except they would know the knowledge of the previous Imam alayhi salam. They would inherit the previous Imam's knowledge. أو ما شاء الله. So basically, they would inherit material things such as lands, as we know the land of Fadak, in which Fatima alayhi salam inherited, and all the way to Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And of course the knowledge, the ilm al-imamah, that unseen knowledge which Allah gives to some people, to some of His ibad, in which Isa alayhi salam used this unseen knowledge to create things, to make things. إني أخلق but بإذن الله أحيي الموتى بإذن الله, and so forth. That unseen knowledge, Allah gives it to some of His best and blessed people on earth, to use it for the purpose of guiding other people, for the hidayah of the people.
Inshallah. Thank you very much for that, Sheikh. We have a question, and the question says, is it permissible for a lady to go out of her house for some perfumed, with the fragrance of her perfume reaching non-mahram men? What's the opinion of Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani about this?
It's basically, the Sayyid mentions that it is not permissible if it tempts or attracts a non-mahram man. In other words, she would use this to cause some kind of excitement for the opposite gender. That's the purpose of wearing that perfume, for the purpose of arousal of the opposite gender. That's haram. So she must not do such things.
Such things must not be done. Inshallah. Thank you very much. We have another question, and it says, is it permissible to manipulate the embryo to determine its gender or to make it twins by medical means? Is something acceptable as such as or not, because such services are being provided by the medical professionals?
It is permissible to actually specify the gender of this embryo, or let's say fetus, as a result. But what is haram and not permissible, which is known as to be تغيير أو في خلق الله, to change Allah's creation, is to make that fetus or the baby in future disabled or without hands, without eyes, for example, to disfigure that child as a result of playing with the genetics of that embryo, or let's say fetus. So that would basically causing harm to this child in future, and that is alteration to the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal, تغيير في خلق الله, which is not permissible.
But to find out the gender, it's more than permissible.
Yes,
it's fine.
yes, yes.
Inshallah. Thank you very much. We have another question, and it is in regards to fish. It says, if a fish falls out of water, or a wave throws it outside of the water, all the water recedes and the fish is left on the ground, like what we see in Italy now, can we consume this fish or not? Looking at Italy and all its canals, they've all dried out. So, and looking around the world where lots of droughts are taking place. So what's the ahkam saying, hukum about us having the fish which is dead or still alive but out of water levels?
Conditions of catching a fish or having a fish halal to consume. Number one, it should be brought out from the water by a human being. So, in other words, if the fish jumps out of the river, let's say, without the interference of any human being and it dies, we cannot consume that fish, it's haram. So basically, if one catches the fish by hand or by a tool, for example, by a net, let's say, and as a result, that fish dies outside the water, by this kind of catching, then of course that fish would be halal. And of course, we mean halal if it's a fish with scales. Otherwise, if you catch fish without scales, you cannot consume it, even if you did all the procedures of catching the fish in the right way and allowing the fish to die outside the water. So yes, if that fish is with scales, of course, it becomes halal to consume.
To consume.
But with these conditions, they mentioned the kutub al-fiqhiyya that تذكية السمك إخراجه من الماء, that the tazkiyah or tazkiyah of the samak, of the fish, is to bring it out of the water. So either by the hand or by the tool or any means of human intervention, in other words, to bring out that fish from the water.
Inshallah. Thank you very much for that, Sheikh. As we have said previously, that the show is live. You can send in your questions via WhatsApp, via Facebook, as well as YouTube comments. And for those that would like to have a live and direct response, they can call the number provided at the bottom of the screen and get a direct response from the Sheikh. We have a WhatsApp question. It says, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh and respected host. Wa alaikum assalam. My question is that I want to include more mustahabbat in my daily life and prayers, but I'm not sure where I could find these information to perform these acts. I'm a convert and do not read Arabic books.
Well, you have for example, a site called dua.org. Lots of ad'iyah there, lots of a'mal there. If you can find, I'm sure there are Mafatih al-Jinan by Sheikh Abbas Qawmi rahmatullah alayh, specific books of ad'iyah mentioned. You can easily go with the translation available and basically apply all these ad'iyah in your daily prayers, for example. So you have ad'iyah after Salat al-Subh, for example. You have also Nafilat al-Subh, 2 rak'ah, for example. You have ad'iyah after Salat al-Dhuhr and Asr. Each act of prayer, of daily prayer, you have a dua for it, more than one dua, by the way. And you have also Nafilat al-Dhuhr and Asr. The same applies to Salat al-Maghrib and Isha. Again, you have ad'iyah after Salat al-Maghrib, Nafilat al-Maghrib, and you have Isha as well, Nafilat al-Isha as well, Salat al-Ghufaylah. Lots of mustahabbat you can find if you search for the Kitab Mafatih al-Jinan in English.
That's
available.
Translated in English.
Exactly.
Yes.
The section of A'mal, Ta'qibat al-Salah, the supplications after each Salah. You'll find, mashallah, lots of, you'll be sitting on your prayer mat for an hour at least.
Inshallah, inshallah.
If you basically follow these instructions.
Inshallah. Thank you very much for that, Sheikh. And we hope to hear many more questions coming in from brothers and sisters, which are reverts and more. We have a question from a Christian, and I believe that question came in last week, but we didn't have enough time to answer, so I'll be giving it a detailed answer this week. It says, good afternoon, brother. I have 2 questions as a Christian. What's the role of Imam al-Mahdi, and how long will he rule for? The second part is he the Messiah in Islam?
Yes, indeed, the Imam Salamullah alayh, when he reappears, Ajalla Farajuh al-Sharif, according to this dua, وَتُمَتِّعُهُ فِيهَا طَوِيلًا, will be living for a long time. Specific years, maybe different opinions mentioned, but he's going to be there for a long time, inshallah, in his absolute and one state in the world. Basically, Isa alayhi salam will be descending to pray behind the Imam alayhi salam. And that's why many Christians would become Muslims as a result. When they see that their leader, Isa alayhi salam, is actually praying behind Al-Mahdi alayhi salam, who is a Muslim's leader, they would actually convert to Islam as a result of seeing this. And of course, the Imam is Imam al-Rahmah. He comes as his grandfather Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, with mercy, with forgiveness, with rahmah. Only those stubborn, those mu'anideen, jahideen, criminals, like ISIS and others, who would be defeated and of course would stand against the Imam, in which Imam needs to clear that, to basically remove all these criminals, as we today see that they're waging wars against humanity, beheading people in the streets, no mercy against women, children at all. So that needs a bit of cleansing as a result in some cases, as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his battle in Badr against the Mushrikeen, in Uhud, in Khandaq and others. So that is needed anyhow. So yes, he is the Messiah, as you mentioned,
yes.
The Munqidh, the Savior of humanity, inshallah. May Allah hasten his reappearance.
Ilahi, I mean, do we have narrations? And where can we find narrations about Imam al-Mahdi, Ajjallahu Ta'ala Farjah Sharif, is going to be coming with Nabi Allah Isa?
Many books of the Shia mention this. For example, if you want a specific book to study and revise, Kitab Imam al-Mahdi min al-Mahdi ila al-Dhuhur, Imam Mahdi from cradle to his reappearance on Dhuhur.
And I'm sure they're also available in translated, where the brothers and sisters can be getting a direct answer. As we have said, and again I'm repeating the same message, that the show is yours. And I'm really happy to see that we're having questions coming from Christians, from converts. We want to hear more questions coming in. What are your day-to-day problems? What are your issues? This show is yours. Why not send in your questions and get an answer for your questions that have been sent in?
Can I just add,
yes, yeah.
Also from last week, I think, a brother asked about, he's a convert from Ismaili madhab.
No.
In other words, he only believed in 6 Imam of Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, up to Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam and Ismail, all the way down. So he asks about if he needs to pray again, to make up all his prayers.
Yes, correct. There was a question.
To fast.
Yes.
No, he doesn't need to do so.
Should I repeat the question before I...
You can do so,
The question was along the line about the brother being an Ismaili, then he converted to being a Ithna Ashari and believing in the Ithna Ashari Imam. He wants to ask that the salah that he has done, as well as the Sawm, does he have to repeat them, or are they accepted? And the Sheikh's answer is that
there's no need to repeat them.
There is no need to repeat them, inshallah, that you should carry on the way, but inshallah stick to the Ithna Ashari Imams. Thank you very much for that, Sheikh. We have another question, and it says, it's a YouTube question. It says, Assalamu alaikum. Question, please. Is woodworking okay to have as a hobby or a profession?
In the grave, for example, on the wood, should be fine.
There is no issue with something such as. Another YouTube question, again, it says, does talking with a non-Muslim female make your fasting invalid?
It's not part of the fast invalidators, mubtalat al-sawm or salam, for example. If it's a professional, let's say, debate or talk or a speech or let's say communication, should be fine, as we do every day. When we go to the supermarket, we talk to the salesman or woman, for example, to find something for us, help and so forth, customer service, for example. Professionally should be fine, but beyond professional, then of course that would lead to acts of haram. So if anything happens after that, let's say, crossing the boundary of
Yes.
Sharia, that would be haram. That needs istighfar and not to repeat it again.
Inshallah, we shall not be along those lines, especially coming towards the holy month of Ramadan. We have a question, and it's in regards to wealth, especially again in the month of Sha'ban. I know that lots of gifts and presents are given away towards their children and family and friends. It says, is it permissible to use the wealth of the children that are given to them by relatives on occasions of their birthdays and Eids, for the common interests of the household, such as paying for water, basically utility bills and household expenditures?
You see, it's not permissible and not allowed for the parents to use the only children's, let's say, income or savings, which is specified for them by the government, by other companies, for example, to basically use that money for their own interest. So that, let's say the father uses it to buy, for example, fridge or freezer for the house, for their use, for example, and not for the use of the children, for example, or to buy a car, as an example. That money is only for the child and not for the parents to pay for their bills, let's say electricity and water and so forth. Yes, they can use it to buy the clothes for the children, to pay for the cost of the children's education, for example, private education and so forth. What means to be spent on the child's needs and wants.
Inshallah. Thank you very much for that, Sheikh. We have a question. Can I come back to that? Although, let's say, like the fridge is used as well by the adults and the children?
If it's like, as mentioned, the electricity bill and the water bill, then it could be problematic.
Could be problematic,
Yeah.
inshallah. Let's hope that children are not going to start complaining to their parents about not spending enough on them after today's show. We have another question that says, what should those girls do whose parents forbid them to wear the hijab? What's Ayatollah Hakim opinion about something such as?
Yes, the late Sayyid, rahimahullah, he would mention that it is wajib and obligatory for the woman to wear hijab, especially if that girl reaches the age of puberty and the age of bulugh, completing 9 years of lunar age, lunar calendar age, and entering the 10th year, in which she becomes on her wajib to wear hijab as her mother and older sisters, for example. And that needs to be done in a very early stage, 6-7 years of age, to train that little girl to, wear some kind of colorful hijab, as a car, for example, until they reach the age of, the wajib and the bulugh age, in which they have to basically wear the proper hijab, in which would protect them from the eyes of the non-mahram. And of course, if the parents, they try to force this girl not to wear the hijab, it's haram to obey them. You cannot obey your parents to do an act of haram and disobedience. The Holy Quran states in the ayah of Surah 29, ayah 8, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانِ بِوَالِدَيْهِ حُسْنًا. We've given advice to the human being to be good with their parents. وَإِنْ جَاهَدَاكَ لِتُشْرَكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِعِلْمٍ. But if they do struggle to make you to be mushrik, to disassociate with yourself from Allah Azza wa Jal, فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا. Do not obey your parents if they want you to force you to, for example, to become a mushrik or to disobey Allah's ahkam, for example. And one of them is hijab. Do not obey them when it comes to the haram and wajib. You have to somehow find out a way in which you can observe your wajibat and refrain from muharramat, despite your parents insisting on not to observe religion and belief and so forth.
Inshallah. Thank you very much for that, Sheikh. We have our questions coming in, and we hope to have many more coming in. Lots of questions coming in via YouTube. We want to see more WhatsApp questions coming in. And why not pick up the phone and give us a call for us to get a direct answer towards your question. Our question says, Salamun alaikum. Is the world of particles, Allamud Dhar, mentioned in the hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam? And are these hadiths sahih?
Indeed, the Alim al-Dar has been mentioned in the Holy Quran and in the Hadith al-Sharif that Allah Azza wa Jal took from Bani Adam the consent. Alastu bi rabbikum? Qalu bala. All the humanity, the good and the bad, all they said bala. Of course, the first one who said bala was Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he was the best. He exceeded the fadl and the being the best of the creation.
No. Inshallah. Thank you very much for that, Sheikh. We have a WhatsApp question, and I think this question needs to be read. This question needs to be read in detail and have lots of meaning to it. It says, why did Imam Ali alayhi salam name one of his sons Abu Bakr?
You see, initially we have to find out if this really happened. Is this a true, let's say, narration or khabar mentioned by Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam? That's number one. So we have to work on the sanad of the hadith to see exactly what was the cause of this issue. If it's an authentic hadith, it's a different issue. So we have to deal with the issue by initially studying the sanad of the hadith. Number two, Arabs used to call basically their children with the names and not the kunya.
No.
So Abu Bakr or Abu Abdul Rahman or Abu al-Hasan, these are the kunya given to the individual as a respect. You know, Abu Abdullah, for example. Arabs used to respect the children by calling them this kind of titles or agnomen, or let's say kunya, in which they wouldn't call them by their names, for example,
by their direct names.
Part of respect. So how could you call your son Abu Bakr or Abu Abdul Rahman or Abu Abdullah? There's a name for it. So that's one of the issues in which we have to investigate and find out.
In our narrations, do we have that Imam Ali named one of his sons Abu Bakr or not?
I haven't seen anything.
But I think in other narrations there are.
Could be.
But
as I've said, we need to study these hadith. There's something about Umar, yes, mentioned. About Umar's mentioned something. But as I've said, we have to investigate and find out about the authenticity of these narrations, the sanad and the matan as well.
Inshallah. Thank you very much for that, Sheikh. We have another question, and it's a WhatsApp question. It says, Assalamu alaikum. Can I do mut'a with a girl, Ahl Kitab girl, without her father's permission, with the condition of not having sexual intercourse with her?
You see, with regards to the virgin girls, if she's virgin, for example,
let's say she is,
she needs her father's consent. But if she is from a society or religion in which they would not really pay attention to the issue of the virginity of their girls, that the girl would walk out from the house when she's 15, 14, 16, for example, and she finds her partner on her way, in the school, college. So she would basically be with that individual without her father's consent. Then, in this case, she doesn't need any consent from her father.
Sahih.
So that's the religion in which, or that she believes in, for example, that society. But unlike the Muslims, the Muslim girl needs consent from the father if she's virgin. If she's not virgin, of course, she's free to marry herself to anybody.
To take her own decision.
Let's say she's a divorcee, for example.
Inshallah. We have a question, and it is a WhatsApp question, and it says, is it mandatory that the divorce is executed using the correct Arabic prescribed wording, or can it be rephrased in other words?
Yes, you need to use the Arabic words for the divorce. Let's say زوجة فلانة طالق, for example, or زوجتي طالق, and so forth, to be in Arabic, and with two adil and just men as well. So you must have two witnesses who are next to you, and you would recite this with their witnessing this talaq procedure. So you must have two people next to you. Unlike Ahlul Sunnah, in which the husband can say طالق طالق طالق, and that's it. He walks off, she walks off, and they divorce. That's it.
Now, in the witnesses, do both witnesses have to be men, and they have to both be baligh?
Yes, men, baligh, and adil as well, just. Yes.
Just, inshallah. Inshallah. And how can we assure that they are adil?
Initially, themselves, they should make sure that they don't commit any major sins,
No.
alcohol,
No.
adultery, listening to music and so forth. And we look at the Zahir, that they are mu'mineen, they come
No.
to the mosque, to the Husayniyya, we know them, they pray Jama'ah and so forth.
Inshallah, inshallah. Thank you very much for that, Sheikh. We have more YouTube questions coming in, which is great. We want to see more and more of them. Our first question here, and it says, when performing wudu, do I start with my face? If yes, then why are there narrations about prayers said by him when performing wudu? In the narrations, he washes his mouth first.
To wash the mouth, of course, we have mustahabbat before the wudu, the
No.
act of the wudu itself, which is to
mouth and the
to
nose.
wash your mouth and nose, to basically wash them first, and then you start with washing your face. So
No.
the face is the main part, but these are mustahabbat.
So the mustahab is to do the mouth and nose, but
Yeah.
the wajib is to start with the face, and it's starting with the face.
The face, that's the
Inshallah.
start.
Thank you very much
Inshallah.
for that, Sheikh. Inshallah, that's been a great response towards the question. We have another question, and it's a WhatsApp question. It says, what are the spiritual values we get by engaging in mut'ah?
You see, it's a marriage like the long-term marriage. It's a marriage. It's a zawaj. It's a sunnat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Sahaba in the time of Rasulullah, they've performed this, and I've mentioned this before many times, that it is mentioned in the books of the seerah, of the history, that Abdullah ibn Zubayr was the son of Muta,
Ajib,
in which they respect him and they adore
that
him.
answers the second part of the
So
question.
this is something that they do it. But the problem is the one who changed these laws and legislation was Umar ibn Khattab. He said that متعتان كانتا على زمن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وأنا أحرمهما. That I would make these two متعة الحج and متعة النساء, two
No.
types of متعة, for the Hajj and for the Nisa. So he made them haram to be performed, and he said that I would punish أعاقب عليهم, I would punish those who perform them, especially the متعة النساء.
No.
And that would, of course, caused as a result in the history that you have more أولاد الزنا to be born from the intercourses and relationships out of the wedlock as a result. Allah Azza wa Jal, as in the Quran, I mentioned the ayahs there in the Quran, فَآتُوهُنَّ أُجُورَهُنَّ, Mut'ah is mentioned in the Holy Quran, but they actually wanted to prevent this to be performed so that أولاد الزنا would be as a result increased, so that we have more nawasib against Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, and to fight Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And that happened in Day of Ashura. Who killed Imam Hussein? أولاد الزنا, who killed Abi Abdullah Hussein salamullah alayhi, who beheaded him.
Salamullah alayhi. May Allah curse them, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us and inshallah keep us in the path of the Imam and the message of the Prophet. I hear that we have a caller over the phone. Inshallah we'll be taking over his question. Assalamu alaikum. How are you, brother? You are well, inshallah? If you would like to speak to me, can you turn off the volume on your TV screen and listen to me through the phone? Brother, can you hear me?
Can you cut?
Inshallah, if you'd like to call back again and listen to us through the phone because the voice is echoing. Sorry about cutting in the phone. Sheikh, now we're going to come back to the same question that we were on, and it was in regards to mut'ah. And the second part of the question was, what are some of the great personalities during the Prophet's time that did mut'ah? You mentioned them. Can you just say the name again for us?
According to this narration, that Zubayr did the mut'ah, in which resulted in Abdullah ibn Zubayr as a result. And others in the time of Rasulullah also performed the mut'ah. As mentioned, the names are mentioned in the history, in which they went out to the desert and they actually couldn't, they were without wives. So they asked Rasulullah's permission and they did so, allowing them to do and perform the mut'ah. So mut'ah is a marriage. It's not something, na'udhu billah. Even the Ahlul Sunnah, they have this type of marriage, or the short-term marriage, with different titles. It's been performed in Saudi Arabia, in Egypt, other countries, Arab countries, with the title of misyar, misfar, marriage with the intention of divorce. It's all done. But they're accusing us because their leader refrained and forbid this mut'ah, as I've said before, for many purposes.
Inshallah. Thank you very much for that, Sheikh. We have a WhatsApp question. It says, Assalamu alaikum. I am a Shi'i, but I find it really hard to believe that the Prophet ﷺ was killed. Is the source of the hadith authentic or not?
Indeed, initially we go back to the Holy Quran. I've got in detail research, and I think there's a documentary about Rasulullah's Shahada. I mentioned this in that documentary.
Nah.
With sources, with details, with sharh.
That authenticate this hadith.
That initially, the ayah which says, أَفَإِن مَاتَ أَوْ قُتِلْ, that Rasulullah died, rather he was killed. Rather, بَلْ قُتِل. The meaning of the ayah, بَلْ قُتِل. أَفَإِن مَاتَ أَوْ قُتِل. Because the ayah was being used as بَلْ. Rather, he was killed. And of course, narration of Ahlul Sunnah, they have that he was killed by a Jewish woman 4 years before his departure, when she gave him and his companions a piece of meat, I think meat leg or something, and it was poisonous. And he ate it, and after 4 years, he passed away. That's the narration of Ahlul Sunnah.
No. Inshallah, thank you very much for that, Sheikhna. That's given, inshallah, enough detail. We have a YouTube question, and it says, is it true that Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam said, 1 hour of thinking is more valuable than 70 years of praying?
We have some kind of hadith in this regard, that tafakkur sa'a khayr min something to this extent, sana or 70 sana. There is something mentioned that indeed, because this tafakkur, this 1 hour tafakkur would not even an hour, it could be minutes.
No.
As an example, that would take the one from hellfire to paradise. A very clear example, Hur Riyahi, rahmatullah alayh.
Rahmatullah alayh.
On the day of Ashura, he decided, and he said, أُخَيِّرُ بَيْنِي نَفْسِي بَيْنَ الْجَنَّةِ وَالنَّارِ. I put myself in the middle of being either towards the hellfire, na'udhu billah, or the paradise.
No.
And he chose paradise in that crucial moment, in that minute. So sometimes it's like a split-second decision, or a minute decision, that he went from hellfire to paradise. Now we say, Assalamu alayka ya hur riyahi. So can you see this tafakkur sa'a, or even daqiqah, how much it has a value?
No.
That brings somebody from the deepest of the hellfire, Qa'r Jahannam, towards the highest positions in paradise.
Inshallah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be alongside Hur Riyahi and give us the wiseness to make decisions that take us from hellfire but to paradise, inshallah. We have a question that says, what is the ruling for trading in magazines that contain images of women who are not wearing hijab, such fashion, clothes magazines or women's magazines? Lots of jobs now have such things, and lots of our friends and family look into jobs of magazines, social media platforms, which have advertisement of non-hijab wearing women. What is the hukum of this? Is this acceptable for working in such magazines or platforms or not?
Well, anything that contains corrupted materials and indecent, as you mentioned, women and men wearing indecent clothes, for example, especially the women, attracting the eyes of the readers, even on TV, on Facebook, all types of media. If that kind of corrupted material is being used, of course, it must be avoided. It's haram for the one to basically spread such promotions, for example, or to print them or to air them, for example, in which would result in corruption, fasad as a result in the society.
Inshallah. Thank you very much for that, Sheikh. We have a question, and it says, is it permissible to play video games involving adventure or fighting, not chess or other gambling games, in one's spare time, even without being joyful, because music can always be turned off in today's videos games? What's the hukum of Ayatollah Sayyid al-Hakim about this?
The late Ayatollah, rahmatullah alayh, he would mention that it is permissible to play such games, but he would advise the youth specifically that to limit this into the minimum requirements. In other words, one should not waste his time, hours and hours of playing, games and so forth, and that would of course damage one's maybe mental health, for example. Other organs, the eyes could be hurt in somehow for those who get addicted in playing hours and hours. So one should think about at least their well-being, make sure that you wouldn't harm yourself as a result.
Inshallah. Thank you very much for that, Sheikh. We have another question, and I think this question is something that I would ask as well. It's a WhatsApp question, and it says, can I combine doing dhikr with doing things like watching a movie or reading something else? Or most likely it's watching a movie or scrolling on social media. Can we do dhikr there and then?
Of course, dhikrullah is good ala kulli hal, that you would remember Allah Azza wa Jal at any time, at any moment, before you sleep, when you wake up, when you go to even to the bathroom. We have a specific dua entering the bathroom, for example.
Yes.
It's all to do with dhikrullah Azza wa Jal ala kulli hal, to remember Allah Azza wa Jal at all times. That's needed, of course, but we shouldn't associate it with haram act or haram scenes. We have to be careful. That shouldn't be basically by looking at some movies which has indecent clips and in which one, although he's saying astaghfirullah, but he's looking at haram.
Sahih.
So one should be very careful.
Inshallah. Thank you very much for that, Sheikhna. Sheikhna, we have another question, and the question says, I have brought my kafan before my death, but one of my friends has passed away and I have given him my kafan. What is the hukum of this? Can this be done or not?
You can give as a gift to anyone the kafan.
So there's no hukum in regards to it being yours, you can't give it away?
No, you bought it, but you give it to somebody who is in need of it. Let's say he's a poor individual, he hasn't got a kafan. Sometimes it becomes wajib on someone to shroud somebody, to basically to carry the, because it's wajib kifai for the one who passes away, for those Muslims who are around him to prepare for his burial and funeral and everything. Wajib kifai, at least one can take over this issue, then of course it would be waived from others.
Sahih.
Because it's wajib for the Muslims to bury this deceased Muslim, and somehow you have to prepare his burial and so forth.
Somebody has to take responsibility.
Exactly, yes.
Inshallah, before they are cremated, God forbid, or any authorities take further actions.
Yes.
Sahih. Sheikh, now we have a WhatsApp question, and it says, when was saying Ameen after the Fatiha included in Salah? And by whom was this added?
I can't remember the history of this addition to the Salah, but as we know that many of the Ahkam were invented and made up in the time of Umar ibn Khattab. When he came to the power and leadership, he changed many of the Ahkam. One of them is the Tahrim al-Mut'a, as mentioned. One of them is Salat Tarawih. And in the books of Ahlul Sunnah, they mention in the Sahih that he says, Ni'matul bid'ah hadih. It's a great bid'ah, it's a great innovation that I made. So he praises this innovation of Salat Tarawih, for example, as bid'ah, as a good bid'ah. So he made lots of changes to the Ahkam of Islam.
Inshallah. Thank you very much for that, Sheikh. We have another WhatsApp question, and it says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My question is, when praying Salah, does the service under my feet or when I'm on sujood has to be a flat service? As in, does it have to be at one level? Or could it be not more than one level? Let's say like part of your hand is on the carpet and the other part of your hand is not on the carpet, or it's on the sajjadah, the mat, or not. Does it have to be a flat service or not?
It's not that aqli accurate, flatness that you're looking for. It's just a normal, position on the floor, that you have to make sure that your masajid sab'ah, your 7 positions of the sujood to be on the floor. That should be fine. No. It's not that accurate, aqliyan to be that much accurate.
Yes, inshallah.
Millimeters or centimeters, for example.
Naam. I think we have come down to our final question, and our question says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As doing my New Year shopping, they're still sending the question quite late. As doing my New Year shopping, I have done some shopping in big shops and I have chosen to pay off the debt through monthly installments. Throughout the payment of monthly installments, they have taken an interest rate. Is it haram for me to pay those interest rates or not?
According to many opinions, that to pay the interest rate in this way to the, let's say, MasterCard or other major cards dealers, you can use it if you're in need of it.
No.
If you actually to pay this interest, because we can't pay interest without any reason. So if you're in need of it, yes, you can do so. You know, I've got lots of debts. I don't have money in my account. I've got this only credit card, then I can use it. In this case, you can use it and pay for your shoppings and so forth, because you don't have any other sources of income, let's say, for the reason. So we can't pay interest unless we are in need of it, or, you know, we are, no, in other words, we are مضطر اضطرار.
Desperate.
Desperate, أحسنت.
Inshallah. Thank you very much for that, Sheikhna. Thank you for all the questions that you have answered. I would like to thank the viewers that have sent in their questions. It's been a great show. Many questions have been answered, and we hope to have many more questions coming in for our next episodes, which are always live. We will see you next time, inshallah. Fi amanillah, ma'a salama.
With more and more victims of war and poverty, the Middle East has seen a surge in patients seeking medical aid. Iraq alone has 2.4 million people without access to any form of medical assistance. In Afghanistan, due to the lack of funding and devastating conflict, the health service is at breaking point. Imam Hussein Charity aims to help provide a better future for these impoverished patients, aiding them with finances for their prescriptions as well as dialysis of their kidneys. You can help our brothers and sisters with purchases of prescriptions for just £20, and for £200 help a patient with a dialysis procedure. To donate or for more information, visit www.imamhusseincharity.com.
Even death was not able to separate Abbas from Hussein, just as the haram of Abbas cannot be separated from